have already saved 200 million this year.
Lord Farmer.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, we recognise that issues relating to sex and gender can be complex and sensitive for schools to navigate, which is why we are developing guidance to support schools in relation to transgender pupils. It is important that we're able to consider a wide range of views in order to get this guidance right, so we've committed to holding a public consultation on the draft guidance prior to publication.
My Lords, I thank my noble friend for that answer, but I would say that schools need this guidance now. There's much confusion in schools, and I think children are suffering and teachers and head teachers are struggling. Also, the experience of NHS gender dysphoria services points towards future class actions brought by former pupils. Some of those who want to detransition fully will be unable to do so. So will my noble friend, the Minister, assure this House and head teachers and their staff that this guidance will be definitive enough to protect schools legally?
Well, in response to my noble friend, the guidance to support schools in relation to transgender pupils will set out schools' legal duties and aim to provide clear information to support schools' consideration of how to respond to transgender issues. However, the guidance will not create new laws or be able to preempt the decision of a court on any specific case that might be brought.
Discrimination is on the rise, and I welcome this question, because it's clear that we have to do something. A YouGov poll published today, commissioned by Gallup, indicates that 1 in 5 LGBT people have been coerced or face conversion out of their sexual orientation and gender identity. And coupled with the staggering rise in hate crime against trans people, it's clear that we need action. No one should feel isolated at school, nor feel that they do not belong, nor that their families nor their parents belong. So therefore, does the noble lady, the Minister, acknowledge that we need inclusive relationship and sex education, especially for those misrepresented, stereotyped and marginalised groups? And will the noble lady, the Minister, ensure that any strategy is both evidence-based and based on the needs of pupils, including trans pupils and their families?
Well, the noble Lord brings obviously very extensive experience and wisdom in these areas. As the noble Lord is aware, the government will be publishing a draft bill to ban conversion practices, and we're committed to protecting all those who are at risk from those practices of harm. In terms of listening to the voices of all pupils, including trans pupils, I would really stress the government is committed to a very full and open consultation so that the guidance we produce reflects the views of all those affected.
My Lords, puberty is a difficult time, especially for young women. For example, a dread of sexualised stereotypes can lead to anxiety about body, sometimes expressed as dressing as a tomboy, sometimes pathologised as anorexia. Therefore, can the Minister ensure that schools do not automatically affirm the fashionable gender dysphoria as a catch-all solution, particularly difficult for young lesbians? And can the Minister assure teachers who do not endorse social transitioning associated with gender ideology that their employment and reputation will be protected from false allegations of transphobic bigotry?
So the noble lady raises important points, but she paints a picture which I don't fully recognise. I think the vast majority of schools realise that these are incredibly sensitive issues for staff, for pupils and for pupils' parents, and are doing their absolute utmost to keep that level of trust with all that they are responsible for in their care.
My Lords. My Lords. As the Minister says, this is clearly a very sensitive and complex issue, and schools are clamouring to know what to do. All kinds of stories abound about woke policies and political correctness gone mad, but the Cass review said that doing nothing for a child in distress was not a neutral act. So pending guidelines arriving, will the Minister agree that all school policies should be as sensitive and inclusive as possible?
I think absolutely we want our policies to be sensitive, we need them to be practical, we need them to be clear, and we need them to be trusted. But just to be clear, the Noble Lady quoted one element of Dr. Cass's report. I didn't hear her also say, and forgive me if I missed it, that any decisions about social transition are not neutral either.
My Lord. But isn't imposing the use of preferred pronouns on teachers and on pupils an attack to freedom of speech?
Good point.
As I say, I don't think it's helpful to generalise and talk about imposition of pronouns. We will be addressing these issues in our guidance, and as I say, we will be drawing on the widest range of views to inform that guidance.
My Lords, I think most people do agree that guidance is needed for schools, and they will welcome the Noble Lady, the Minister's comments that these must be done with sensitivity and respect to all pupils, including, of course, trans pupils. But would she acknowledge that the lack of certainty over timing of this is furthering anxiety and concern, and notwithstanding what she has said correctly about the need for consultation, that the sooner we can get this guidance published and out to schools, the better?
I would agree. There's, I hope I didn't give a sense of foot dragging on the part of the department. What I wanted to share with the House was a sense of how important we see this guidance and how seriously we're taking it.
My Lords.
There is evidence that children as young as 7 are being asked whether they are male, female, bisexual or trans in schools. Parents appear to have no say in these matters. So would my noble friend the Minister agree that this situation cannot continue? And this is now, in my view, bordering on child abuse. So would she please look into this matter with the utmost urgency and report back to this House as soon as possible?
What would be really helpful is if my noble friend or any member of the House has specific examples like this, to share this with the department so we're able to respond. Certainly, if we look at the evidence, if one looks at the data, for example, of children who've been referred to the NHS GIDS clinic, there are very, very few children as young as 7. So I appreciate there are a number of other issues involved here, but the more we can have practical examples, the more we're able to respond effectively.
My Lords, I wonder if I need to declare an interest as Chairwoman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and I completely endorse her department's intention to consult widely on this matter. It's important that they do so, but she'll also be aware that this matter has been tasked to her department since 2021, and parents who are incredibly anxious, as well as children who are affected by it, really do need her department to come to a speedy resolution of this matter. It cannot be right to let it stay out there in the ether year after year after year.
By my calculations, we're only just a year after and a bit, if it's been since 2021. But more seriously, one of the important elements in our considerations is the work that Dr. Cass is doing in her review. Her interim report didn't touch on the implications of these issues in relation to education, but we do want to draw on important resources such as her work.
My Lords, on the 5th of July last year, my noble friend the Minister wrote to me, and I quote, "We are in absolute agreement over the principle that parents should know what their children are being taught, especially in relation to sensitive topics. That is an important matter, and in subsequent correspondence and meetings, I was told a letter would be sent to all schools instructing them to show parents who asked the material from which their children are being taught, and not to assert commercial confidentiality or copyright issues." That's what I was told. To date, unless it's happened today, no such letter has been written. When will such letter be sent?
Recognise my noble friend's concerns on this point. The department remains absolutely committed to sending the letter. My noble friend will appreciate that with various ministerial changes we have to get sign-off from the current ministerial team. There is no block to the letter going and it will be sent shortly.
My Lord.
I wonder, could the noble Lord, the Minister, please tell us who exactly is being consulted?
So this will be an open public consultation in the normal way.
That concludes oral questions for today.